Hello and welcome to The Shift, the podcast that aims to tell the no-holds-barred truth about being a woman post-40. Created and hosted by me, journalist and author Sam Baker. This week's podcast comes to you from a cupboard at the BBC. Not the usual hangout of one of the UK's most experienced female broadcasters. When she's not recording her Radio 2 show, Jo Whiley is more usually found in a field, or a garden, in a lake, or doing a triathlon. Lunatic.
Running doesn't make me feel much better, but swimming certainly. If I'm feeling a bit miserable or a bit stressed, if I get in the water, I feel like a different person. I feel like I've gone in some kind of, I don't know, like a magic spell's happening or something. I literally feel my head clear.
Above the sound of central London traffic noise, Jo shares some valuable advice on regaining your confidence after a career crisis, learning not to care too much what other people think, and why age appropriate can do one. Oh, and there may or may not be a pay-on to Monty Don. Who knew? Feels a bit weird to have brought my stupid little portable mic to a room full of recording equipment, but never mind. And it feels even weirder to be interviewing someone who's been broadcasting for their entire career. Be gentle with me, Jo. Thank you for having me.
I'll be gentle with you if you're gentle with me.
Oh, all right then. Let's start with your stellar 30-year broadcasting career, because that's what we're here for. We're here to celebrate amazing women doing amazing things.
Okay.
Post 40.
Yeah, it's amazing that I've been doing it for this long. It's a really long time. It is funny now because I'm interviewing bands and I'm able to say, well, I interviewed you 20 years ago, and they were babies when I interviewed them. Obviously, I was a little slightly older baby, but
you were still a baby.
I was still a baby. Yeah. But yeah, 30 years. It's quite something.
Do you feel like you've grown up with them?
With the bands, yeah, there's a whole generation that I do, and it's lovely that we're still in the business, still making careers in either music or broadcasting. So people like from the Britpop era, when I see Damon or Noel or Jarvis or someone like that, it's just lovely that we're survivors, that we're still doing something. And there's a kind of a nice familiarity and a good relationship now. Whereas when 30 years ago I was interviewing them, or 20 years ago, it was just different. Now there's more of a respect, I think, between each other. Do
you think that might be to do with age and just being a bit more pleasant? Not you, them.
Yeah, no, without a shadow of a doubt, yeah. Because everyone had lots of attitude in the Britpop days in particular.
Yeah. And
so everyone was being a bit chippy, and I was, I'm not massively self-confident, so I'm sure I was quite an anxious and nervous interviewer. Whereas now I'm more confident and I can hold my own. So Damon is always an interesting person to interview. And I actually really quite like interviewing him now. And last time I did it, he just went, oh, we've had some battles, haven't we, over the years? I was like, I love the fact that you recognise that we've had some really tricky times together, but now we can be honest about it, and it's lovely, and there's a real kind of mutual affection.
Do you feel like you have more confidence now when you're interviewing, or, whether it's somebody new who's, I don't know, I hate to say this, but the age of one of your children, or one of those guys or women that you've interviewed loads of times? Do you feel more confident in yourself?
Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. It depends what mood I'm in. I feel more confident just because I've done so many hundreds of interviews over the years, and I know what makes a good interview. So I know how to make someone feel at ease. I know what I want to get out of them. So I've stopped trying quite so hard, I think.
Yeah.
When I listen back to interviews that I was doing, you can tell we're in central London.
Oh, yeah,
the sirens around.
Right. It's atmosphere, it's fine.
Yeah, when I listen back to the early interviews that I did, and you just, oh my God, it's just so cringy, it's awful. Because I'm just reading a list of questions, whereas now I'm like, you know what, the most important thing we do in an interview is to listen to the person who's talking to you. So yeah, I definitely have more confidence. Maybe I research it more now, maybe I've got more time and I understand the whole process, the whole exchange that you have.
So I definitely feel like, especially from interviewing and live interviewing and interviewing on stage, I definitely feel that I used to be, I need to be this person. This is the person I need to be. Things need to happen in a certain formal way. And it was only really when I kind of decided that actually I'm just going to be me, and if I lose my train of thought like I did then, I'm just going to say so.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to make it a chat and see how it goes. And when I stopped trying to be someone else and accepted that this was me and this was how I did it, it kind of went a lot more smoothly.
I think podcasts have played their part in that, because they're much more genuine and honest interviews, aren't they? And they can be really expansive, and people make mistakes, and it's more of a natural conversation. And that's kind of turned the interview on its head, I think. And I've learned certainly from listening to other people doing podcasts. But you're absolutely right. It's the most important thing in the world is just to be honest. And also I realised that back in the day, I would be nervous. I'd be a little bit not subservient, but I felt very much like I was the interviewer and they were the star. And there was just that imbalance. Whereas now I'm aware that they're really nervous. All these people that you interview, they've either had really busy days, so they're absolutely exhausted, or they're very nervous because they're live on the radio. And the most important thing that you can do is make someone feel at ease, make them feel comfortable, and then you've won. You've completely won if you do that. If you just are calm and just say to people, just don't worry, just be yourself, then you will get the finest conversation, the best conversation out of people. And so I really enjoy the whole interview process now, because it is just getting to know somebody, getting to hear their stories.
Because you got into DJing and broadcasting through music, didn't you? So interviewing presumably was not the first thing that got you into the business. It was the thing that came after.
Oh God, yeah. Because I never knew what I wanted to do. This was never a plan. I never had any idea that you can have a career in broadcasting. I used to love radio, but I was just a music fan. So I did languages when I was at college, and then I ended up going to help out on a radio show at Radio Sussex. And then I did a radio journalism course, but all I ever did was sit in a studio and play records back to back. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It was just always about the music. But then I started to work for Radio 4. My first proper job was working for Radio 4. Yeah, and schools radio, and we did a lot of things. We did a lot of social issues, a lot of art and culture. So I saw people like John Humphreys. I worked with him and Nicky Campbell in that real early days, their infancy, and I watched them doing interviews, and then I started to do interviews as well. So probably my most favourite thing in the world is actually interviewing people. And that came from then, way back.
Who's the person you've most loved interviewing?
Oh, God, it's so hard to say. I think it was about 18 months ago, 2 years ago maybe. I did a feature on my show and it was National Treasures. So we'd get icons in and just talk to them for a really long time and ask them to choose songs. And we had Monty Don and we had Joanna Lumley, and they were just so fascinating, and I loved those interviews. Both of those stand out. I mean, Joanna Lumley has a story for anything. She has so many different anecdotes, and Monty was incredibly open about the battles with depression that he's had and how gardening means so much to him, and also music. He was really passionate about music. So they're two standout memories, I think, of just having a proper in-depth chat with somebody where I really felt like they revealed themselves.
Yeah, in a way, it kind of goes back to what you were saying about podcasts, really, because that is almost more of a podcast thing, isn't it? The kind of in-depth chat rather than here's the interview. We've got to do it as more of a formal broadcast.
When I was at Radio 1, that's all it could ever be. The links could only ever be about 3 or 4 minutes, and then it was a song, and then it was 3 or 4 minutes, and then it was a live performance. So everything was very compact and very stunted, so you could never, ever get deep down and personal, which is what I always want to do.
It's really interesting that Monty Don made such an impression. You were a big gardener, aren't you?
I love my gardening. Yeah, I was probably the most nervous interviewing him than I have been of anybody, because he's like an icon. He really is.
A gardening icon.
Gardening icon. Yeah, he's a very wise man. So I was properly shaking before he came in the studio, and then he was lovely. It was almost a case of not wanting to meet your heroes, because I didn't want him to disappoint me, and he didn't at all. But it still feels a bit strange now if I go to Chelsea or if I go to a garden show and he'll call over and he'll be like, "Jo, hi," and we'll have a chat, and I just keep thinking, oh my God, this sounds ridiculous, but it's Monty Don and he knows my name. And much more than anybody in the music industry.
I love that. I love that you didn't say Bowie or things like Monty Don.
Yeah. I did Chelsea and Hampton Court, and the past couple of years I've kind of branched into TV gardening, which is quite funny, quite random. I did do Bowie. I did interview Bowie, and that was a moment as well. I forgot about that.
Bowie, Lumley, Monty Don. When did you get into gardening?
I think I've always really liked it. My granddad used to garden a lot, so I've got loads of really lovely memories of pottering around the garden. He'd got a tiny garden, but he had a greenhouse, so he used to grow tomatoes. So I've got that memory, and I love my granddad so much. And then my mum was always a keen gardener as well, and it's just wherever I've lived, I've developed the place. When we had a place in London, we just had pots everywhere, and then the gardens have kind of got a bit bigger, and I don't know. It's just a place I go to escape. I think it's quite a therapeutic place.
One of your sanity savers?
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt, yeah. God, yesterday it was the sun actually came out and I started doing a bit of pruning, and it just felt so good to be touching something like the earth and just nature. It felt really, really good. And I was feeling quite stressed yesterday. So it's just a great antidote, just being outside.
When you garden, do you garden in silence or do you do everything to a soundtrack?
No, I'd silence. I like silence a lot. You know, even in the house, sometimes I suddenly look up and I'm like, oh my God, there is nothing going on in the house. I should have a radio on or something, but I don't. I quite like just the peace and tranquility. So in the garden, I'll take out Jeremy Vine with me. I've got like a Roberts radio.
Leave him there. That was me saying that, not Jo. Jo did not say that about Jeremy Vine.
No. Yeah, because he's always on in kind of around May time. There have been elections, and it's always fascinating. So I always associate May, spring, gardening, Jeremy Vine. They kind of go together. Me and the borders, Jeremy and the radio.
My mind is boggling.
No, but gardening is a massive passion. My best Christmas presents this year were like some Japanese shears that I got, and I couldn't have been happier.
It's like it's a whole like two sides of you. There's kind of rock and roll Jo, and then there's pruning Jo.
But I'm not. I don't think I am rock and roll. I've worked in music all my life, and I've been to some gigs, and I've had that whole side. But the bigger side of me is not the rock and roll. What is rock and roll anyway? It's a funny expression, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of a weird generic that doesn't mean anything.
No.
How has the music industry changed during the time you've been working in it? Because you went into it late 80s, early 90s?
Yeah, no, it would have been early 90s, yeah. Oh my God, beyond all recognition, it's, in terms of technology, just the whole culture, it's so different. I think in the past couple of years in particular, it's off the scale. The whole radio has changed so much. So it's quite weird. I think we're very lucky being at Radio 2 and doing the job I do that there are still people my age who love music. Thank God. There's just so much music around at the moment that I'm not familiar with. For the first time, I think I genuinely feel quite old, and there's a whole culture going on that I'm not a part of. And up until, say, 3 or 4 years ago, I felt like I was always kind of, on top of what was going on. But now there's just so much choice, and I still like discovering new artists, but it's very, very different.
Do you feel the pressure to keep on top of that, or are you kind of like, actually, I'm fine with where I am now? This is,
Yeah, I think
that's someone else.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my saving grace is being at Radio 2. So having working with people who are similar age to myself, yeah, just accepting with grace that, of course, there should be a whole youth culture that I know nothing about. Coco, my daughter's 11, and she just watches everything on YouTube, and she knows about lots of different music, but it's all through YouTube. And that's a massive revolution, I think, when we'll sit in the living room and I'll suggest that she puts the TV on, and she has no interest in watching the TV. We've got a massive screen. She'd much rather look at this little tiny gadget in her hand and watch a tiny box and watch a video there, or someone on TikTok. Yeah, it's beyond me. Yeah,
TikTok is beyond me. I feel like it's such an old granny whenever anybody mentions TikTok.
Yeah, totally. So hands up, I'm just like, I know my place. I love the music I play. I love music. Six Music plays. That's what I know.
When you were starting out, was there a sense a bit that you were like the only girl in the village, or?
Probably in hindsight, yeah. But I didn't really think about that at the time. I've always been quite laddish, I think, even when I was at school, I always wore boots, and I wasn't girly at all. And so just working in the music industry, it's just how it was. I always hung out with boys all the time, going to gigs with boys, and it just felt like an extension of that. But being at Radio 1, there was hardly any female DJs. You'd had Annie, who was my hero, Annie Nightingale. Janice Long, who I think was fired because she had a child, like a baby. There was a huge...
I vaguely remember.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know the exact facts, but I do remember that Janice was at Radio 1, and then she had a baby, and then she wasn't, and it was like, seriously, can these two things be linked? And then Jackie Brambles, I think Emma Freud was on Radio 2, but there was, Radio 1, there was hardly anybody there. And within the music industry, you had people like Louise... It was always the first name of the band. Louise from Sleeper, there was Skin from Skunk Anansie, Justine from Elastica.
They didn't have surnames.
No one had surnames. But again, we were all quite wary of each other. That goes back to what we were saying earlier on, how now I've seen and interviewed these people, and it's so lovely to be able to say, God, do you remember that time when we spoke and we were both kind of a bit off with each other? I was just really nervous, and we were both coming from the same place, and now it's really nice having a proper grown-up conversation and being honest with each other.
I think as well, those Britpop girls, they were scary. I mean, like, they were cool, and you wanted to be them a bit, but if I don't know. They scared me.
They were quite fierce.
Yeah.
They were quite fierce and slightly edgy to interview. And so I always felt a little bit intimidated. But I think they were quite intimidated themselves. So it was like a defence mechanism. So they were having to come at it from quite a fierce stand themselves.
What do you think it's like now for young women coming into the music bit of broadcasting?
I think it's quite a healthy place, and I think it's getting healthier. I mean, it's just so radically different to when I entered into it. There are lots and lots of opportunities and lots of support for each other, I think. So it seems like it's a good place. You've got BBC Introducing, I think, is a great opportunity for girls to get into broadcasting. Six Music, Radio 2 is improving. Radio 1 has got lots of people, lots of girls working there. So, I think there are many opportunities. I think it's changed a lot. And just that support is great. Everyone's looking out for each other and supporting each other.
That moment in 2018 was a real shift in your career when you moved to your slot now, your 7 to 9 p.m. slot. And it's almost like, how do I put it? Listening to you now on the 7 to 9 slot, it's like, this is who I am. How did you've spoken before in the press about how you took a bit of your confidence took a bit of a battering when you had that brief drive to
that year with Simon.
Yeah, that year with Simon. And how did you get your confidence back? How did that feel to go through that? And at that point in your career, so early 50s, when you'd achieved so much?
It was a weird time because I was offered the opportunity, was really, really keen to stretch myself and to become a better broadcaster and to have different opportunities and prove myself. And so it was such an exciting prospect to be doing that show. And it was a tough show. It was 3 hours, I think, too long, a show, genuinely. There was so much that we were striving to do.
Do you normally do 2 hours?
Yeah. A lot of shows are 2. Ken is 2.5, I think. Jeremy's 2 hours. So a 3 hour show was a long time, and it was trying to do too much. It was going from, when were we on? I think it was 5 till 8. So you were trying to be kind of newsy and informative and do interviews, and then trying to move into more of a music kind of based show towards the end of it. It was just trying to do too many things.
You're going through a big transition in people's day, aren't you? You're going from leaving work, if you're lucky, at 5, through that commute home, through almost to sofa time.
Yeah. So it was almost an impossible task, but it was really exciting. And when I was asked to do it, I just thought, yeah, fantastic. This is what I've really wanted to show and stretch myself as a presenter. This is a perfect opportunity. But I was feeling the effects of being my age. I had that hideous brain fog, which, unless you experience it, I think it's so hard. It's so intangible. It's just that awful thing of trying to remember stuff and it just kind of fading away from your brain, and you try and get hold of it and trying to bring the thought back into your head to articulate it, and you can't.
And it's not something that people tell you about perimenopause.
Perimenopause, that thing.
People tell you about the sweats and all that stuff, but nobody says there will be this moment when you think you're going completely mad.
Yeah. I've never had sweats, but I was aware that I did think at times that I was losing my mind, and it kept going backwards and forwards to various doctors and professionals and just going, I just don't feel quite right, And I'd read so much about HRT and had the fear about it, just thinking cancer links, shouldn't try it. But then when I was offered the Drive Time show, I thought, I'm going to have to do something about this, because I don't think I'll be able to cope with it myself, because it's very demanding. So I started HRT in preparation for doing the Drive Time show, because I professionally thought I ought to. And it actually really did work. That is the most marked benefit of taking HRT, is just having more clarity in my head and being able to speak. When I used to have PMT, I'd have about 2 days and I'd do radio shows, and I just would say the words would just come out in the wrong order, or they wouldn't be there. And it was just embarrassing, really embarrassing. So I started HRT before I did Drive, and it really helped, really, really did help. But what didn't help was the bashing and the lack of success of the show, and the scrutiny. That was not good for my confidence at all.
Fair enough.
Yeah, because there's that thing of wanting to do a really, really great job and being aware that a show is not being successful, and that's a horrible, horrible thing. Speaking of somebody like yourself who's just always wanted to put out the best quality of work.
Yeah, and you define yourself, for better or worse, by knowing that you're good at a thing. like you're a good broadcaster, you're a popular broadcaster, or you produce magazines that sell like I did. Oh, you know, you're good at putting out features that people read and go, oh my God, that's exactly what I think. And it's taken away almost.
Yeah, I didn't always feel proud of the shows that we were putting out, and that was a horrible feeling. It was not something I was familiar with at all. I was always normally really proud of stuff. So, but then also there was like this whole social media thing going on with people being very angry that I'd come in and destroyed this show, which felt a little bit unfair.
Because you were a woman as well. There was quite a lot of that, wasn't there?
Yeah, do you remember there used to be a time when they didn't think that women had very nice voices and shouldn't be allowed on the radio? I mean, that was oh my God,
a thing?
Yeah, that was genuinely a thing many years ago.
Too high pitched and hard to listen to.
Yeah, exactly. Too grating. So getting flack for ruining a successful show, as some people thought, and then not being happy with it myself. My confidence definitely started to wobble. It would be on Fridays, and we'd get a phone call from the press office, and Steve would my husband, Disco Steve, would turn to me and be like, hey, we're not going to get the papers this weekend. We're just going to, we just don't need to see the papers. I'd like grab his arm and go, what's in the paper? What are they doing? And, for a series of weeks, there was a story knocking the show, knocking me, knocking Simon. Every weekend. It was just relentless. It was really horrible. And so you just wanted to hide away. And, I live in a tiny town. I just couldn't face going to get a cup of coffee and sitting there, because I knew I'd be looking at everybody reading the papers thinking, oh God, they're reading that story about me. I mean, it must be horrendous if you do some terrible thing and there's a scandal and you're in the papers constantly. I just can't conceive of how those people live. It must be awful.
Unless you've been exposed to it either on social media or in the press, people have any comprehension
it's
of
hard.
how it feels. Because it just feels like, certainly social media, I mean, people, there are loads of people, believe it or not, who don't use social media, and they just don't get it.
No.
I don't get why it would be so debilitating, but it is, because it chips away at it.
I wonder if it's changed now because a lot more people have spoken out against it, and the whole thing of trolling people are a lot more transparent about it. Or whether I'm just not in the eye of the storm at the moment, so it doesn't feel... Because I don't feel like I care now. If people start being really, really vicious, I know that there is just one person in a room somewhere miles away. They don't represent millions and millions of people, which you just get out of perspective at the time. You just completely get things out of perspective, and you think that everybody hates you. And that's just not the case.
Even if they're not people you know or care about, it still feels weird, doesn't it?
It's such a bizarre and horrible culture.
Somebody said to me recently that they think the worst time, somebody who had an absolute hammering on social media, so they think the first time is terrible, but then after that you almost don't notice. It's almost like you do get a bit of a... I'm putting my hand in front of my face, kind of a shield almost. You're kind of like, oh, that again.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true. I don't really want to find out if that's
No,
true,
me neither. No, at the moment I feel good. I feel very much removed from social media, and I don't think that I would care quite so much, but who knows? And really, really do not want to go through that ever again. Thank you very much.
How did you kind of rebuild your confidence? Because you seem very much a Jo to me.
I definitely forgot how to speak. At times I'd open my mouth during that time and I wouldn't know what voice to speak in. And that just felt very odd because I've been doing it for 20 years. I remember when I went to Radio 2, and I think everyone that comes from Radio 1 to Radio 2 will say this, you sit behind the microphone and like everything just feels a little bit more old-fashioned and a little bit grander than the place that you've come from. And so you start to speak, and you speak in quite a posh voice because you think that's how you should speak.
Is that your grown-up voice?
Yeah, I guess it is. And then after a while of being at Radio 2, you just go, oh, actually, I'm just going to be myself. But I think I started speaking weird, different voice when I was doing drive time. So I remember doing the first show back, 7 till 9, and it was just like, waves of relief just crashing around. It was just such a wonderful feeling. It just felt like putting on, the softest, comfiest jogging bottoms and the best knackered old pair of trainers and a comfy cardigan. Everything felt right and normal and natural. Yeah, it was just a relief. I just felt like, oh no, I do know how to do this. It's okay.
Totally do. Do you like TV or radio best?
Radio's lovely. It's so intimate. You have such a connection with lots of people. I know people talk about how you sometimes think you're talking to just one person, but you're not really. I think you do have that awareness you're talking to lots of people, but I love it. And broadcasting at night time, it's in that evening, it's just got a very relaxed feel about it. And I think it suits me. It suits what I'm like as a person.
You mentioned Disco Steve just now. Next year, you and Disco Steve have been married 30 years.
Really? How did that happen?
Yeah.
It probably
crazy,
is.
Isn't it?
Yeah, I know. It's what old people get to those kind of ages.
God.
I don't know how that happens.
And you've got 4 kids, and India is 27, and Coco is 11, and Jude and Cass are in between.
Yeah, 21 and 18.
Does that feel crazy?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it feels really crazy. This year's been a big year of change because Cass, is the 18-year-old, has gone off to uni. So now it's just me, Steve and Coco at home a lot of the time. The others will come back and kind of, So the house just feels cavernous, and it's a horrible feeling. It's a really horrible feeling. It's horrible for Steve because I'm away in the evening, so he's at home and it's just him and Coco in the house, and it's horrible for her because she's used to having these big brothers and sister around all the time, so suddenly it's weird. I've not enjoyed it. I'm not enjoying it very much at all.
I suppose it's what they would have, back in the day, have called empty nest syndrome.
Yeah, I talk to so many people who have that feeling. It's bizarre because we all talk about our feelings so much now, and everyone's so honest and says how we feel, and you just think, God, our mothers and our grandmothers have all gone through this, and I think it's one of the toughest things that you go through. And the menopause knocks you for 6, and then the kids leaving. It's so strange. It just leaves you literally thinking, I'm not entirely sure what I'm here for anymore. It's weird that they just used to get on with it stoically, whereas now we just bleat about it and go, oh, I feel really bad.
So it hasn't been freeing. You haven't kind of felt like, oh, great, I haven't got 4 kids to get to school. Initially,
you feel like you don't have so many, you're not driving around constantly, but then you also wonder what to do with yourself, which is probably why I do so much sport and just find things to do. It's, I don't think it is freeing. It's a bit sad, really.
Oh, you are like the fittest person I know, and I do know other fit people.
I was going to say I'm not the fittest person
you know.
I'm not.
Well, the most enthusiastically fit. Then, when did that start?
It started. I can tell you very much when it started. I was asked to do the Great North Run, to do a half marathon, and I'm not a runner at all. When I was at school, I was useless, absolutely useless, and hated cross country. Oh my God, complete hell.
Oh, and the purple knees of cross country.
Mottled, the mottled thigh.
Legs.
Oh. But I did swim like you. I used to swim competitively, so I've always done the swimming bit. So I was asked to do the Great North Run, and I ended up being talked into it. And there's no way you can do a half marathon without training. So I roped in a local runner who I paid to take me out running, and then I persuaded India, my daughter, to come and do it with me because I didn't want to do it on my own. And that was brilliant. That's been so lovely, learning to run with her. So we did that. We just kind of embarked on this big crash course in running, and we did the half marathon, and it was just an amazing experience. It was really, really bonding for the two of us. And then Steve joined in, and it all snowballed from there on. And because I used to swim, then I'd started to run. I just thought I'd give triathlons a go. It's just keep life interesting, really. I think that's why I do it.
Is there a certain amount of sanity saving as well in the running and the swimming and the...
Yeah, increase it. Running doesn't make me feel much better, but swimming certainly. If I'm feeling a bit miserable or a bit stressed, if I get in the water, I feel like a different person. I feel like I've gone in some kind of, I don't know, like a magic spell's happening or something. I literally feel my head clear and my mood lift, and everything feels a lot better from swimming. It's you must be the same when you get in the water. There's something about being in the water. I
don't get in the water very often because of my stupid hair.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like you. I used to swim in my early teens. I stopped. It was like 15, boys, exams, hair, all of that. Started to worry about makeup and how I looked and everything. And something had to give, and it was the swimming, which is nuts, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I was really interested when I saw on your Instagram that you were back swimming.
Yeah.
Because I think that there's a lot of synergy between 15 and 50. And I feel like I'm getting back some of the positive things about being that age. Yeah, you really inspired me to think, I should get swimming back. Do you have a local pool, or what do you do?
I do. I feel like a bit of a cliche because I thought I was doing all this. I was just discovering everything myself and doing like Tough Mudders and then the half marathon and the triathlon, and then I started doing open water swimming last year because of the triathlon, and then it just becomes this massive movement, and you just go, God, I'm such a cliche, everybody else is doing it as well. How does this happen? What is going on that makes everybody, maybe it's people our age just wanting more out of life, and so just investigating every different option that they possibly can.
Yeah. And not wanting to...
Get old and decrepit.
Yes.
It probably is, yeah. It's just refusing to accept your age and wanting your body still to function.
I definitely feel, and a lot of people I've spoken to, it is a lot about strength. It's like, it's when you kind of get out of bed, that terrible thing, I mean, it's kind of a joke, but that terrible thing when you get out of bed and you have to stop yourself going, oh, because your back hurts. I'm too young for this.
I know. I keep looking at people and just thinking, do you hurt? Do you hurt all the time? Do you hurt all the time? Because I hurt all the time. Like, my joints hurt all the time, my back, my knees, everything. And I just think I must have some terrible affliction that it's not my age, but it probably is my age. It's a horrible thing.
But all of the exercise helps.
It's got to help,
yeah. I'm like nodding frantically.
Yes.
It
No.
must help.
I do. I feel really fit at the moment because I'm training for a thing that's coming up. But the open water swimming is the best thing that I've discovered over the last 18 months or so, because of the feeling it gives you when you get out of the water. It's just like, it's obviously just a massive rush of endorphins or whatever it is, adrenaline, I think. It's just so lovely being I go to a quarry, which sounds horrible, but it's really, really beautiful and peaceful. Calm, no music, nothing at all. And I do it with a bunch of women who are similar ages to myself, who've had different experiences. Actually, Steve comes along as well. It's just that team thing. It's just like random people who don't have that much in common with each other, but you're there together doing a thing, whether it's you're swimming or extending that onto doing a triathlon. And I just love that friendship and the camaraderie and the egging each other on, and watching people go over the finishing line doing a triathlon, knowing how hard it was for them to do it. It's been the greatest thing.
You're addicted now, aren't you?
I think I probably am, but I wouldn't do it if I hadn't. But you have to sign up to something to make yourself do it, because I wouldn't just go along on my own. I have to know that I'm going on this date to do this thing, so therefore I have to train.
Yeah,
I recommend it.
Kind of external impetus that makes it happen.
Yeah, you should definitely try. Get a big massive swimming hat and put your hair in it and do some open water swimming.
Like that terrible, there was some pictures of the Coronation Street cast in the 70s on social media, and they had those big swimming hats with the big flowers. Do you remember those that were real? Yeah,
that's what you need. You'd look great.
Oh God, no. Terrible.
It's about time they made a comeback, actually, those hats.
Yeah, we could start a trend.
You can lead the way.
Oh,
They're
God,
so
terrifying.
funny.
I think I'd rather be a follower than a leader on that front. On the subject of fashion, that is not in any way the subject of fashion, but let's talk about it. Not that you weren't always cool. Of course you were always
Careful
cool.
What you say.
Yeah, but in the last 5 or 6 years, I feel like you've got really fashion cool.
I think it's because I've had stylists working with me in the past, so you kind of... In the beginning, you're utterly clueless and you make so many terrible fashion mistakes, and then you get people going along going, oh, try this, you'll look really good in it, and you protest initially, and then you go, oh, actually, maybe it does suit me, so you just get more daring. And then I think about 3 or 4 years ago, I just started to find boutiques all over the place, Brighton, London, Oxford, various different places that had great labels in that were clothing that I thought was really cool for me. It just felt like everyone caught up. Yeah. I still, to this day, if I go into somewhere like Selfridges or Liberty, I go to certain areas that I know I like, but I just have panic attack. Whereas if I go to a small boutique and I know they curate it really well, and there are, in the last 2 years, I think there've been some really good Scandi brands that have come along, and they just do really cool dresses, really good jumpers. They're expensive. That's the other thing. Honestly, I can afford to wear nicer clothes now, and relatively, and that helps. So I'd rather save my money and buy a couple of really nice things and then wear jeans with it or whatever. And so I'm very, very lucky to be able to do that, and I think that's probably helped me be a little bit more fashion.
It felt like about 4 years ago, and suddenly your Glasto outfits got to be a bit of an event. It's like, I remember people on social media starting to say, where'd you get that dress, Jo? And then that seemed to then become quite self-fulfilling. Yeah,
I know, it's exciting. I quite enjoyed that thing, and I do feel like I've got to raise my game every year. It's just feeling more confident in my own skin. I think I feel more comfortable in my own skin. I know what suits me, I know what I like, and I know where to get it from, so it's become a lot easier. But yeah, it's fun dressing up. I didn't used to think it was fun, but now it is.
It's really interesting that at this point you've kind of found your fashion confidence, really got in your fashion groove. The point when so many people I speak to are just like, oh, I'm not quite sure. should I wear that? Am I a bit... And the phrase that keeps coming up, which I really hate, but everybody uses, is mutton. And it's like,
oh, God.
Don't say that. Where did you get that
so
from?
derogatory, isn't it? And, or, just putting yourself down.
Yeah, doing it to yourself. You wouldn't say it to someone else. So why are you saying it to you? You know?
No, I think, it genuinely does not matter what you wear. And just the idea that you're wearing stuff that's not age appropriate, it's just bollocks, isn't it? It's just complete bollocks. I will always wear ripped jeans, and I'm wearing lycra leggings now. Both India, who's 27, and myself have got the same pair of lycra leggings, and it's just what you wear it with. It's what how it suits you.
I'm
never going to change.
Think about that age appropriate thing, do you?
No, not at all. Yeah, I think my wardrobe is narrowed down, so I've got stuff that I know I like and know that suits me. So I've got quite a few little tiny black dresses, but I'm not going to worry about not showing my body. I just don't care. I just don't care. And that is one of the great things that does come with getting older. So you might have all the insecurities and the lack of confidence, but then on the other hand, you've also got a sense of not caring so much anymore, because when you're young, you just think that everybody's looking at you and everybody's judging you and tearing apart what you're wearing. And maybe it comes from, like, you and me, we've both gone through getting flack, and when people are attacking you personally and professionally, what you wear is really utterly irrelevant. It really doesn't matter at all. That's
true. And I think it's, God, I'm nicking this from someone, and I can't remember where I'm nicking it from, but I read a piece made this really good point. She's like, it doesn't really matter whether or not you're wearing a bikini on the beach, because what you're not seeing is the fact that woman, is an award-winning scientist, or a doctor, or a broadcaster, or a journalist, or the kind of the bikini or the swimming costume is irrelevant. And I think that feels truer than ever now.
Yeah.
On the subject of that, you posted a really annoyingly fabulous picture of you in a bikini on your recent holiday.
From a distance.
From a distance, but it was still fabulous. And then you wrote underneath it something about, I can't remember what you said now.
It was about me being the joke of the family, I think.
Probably, yeah. But you looked great. Do you feel, how is your body image? Do you feel as confident as you look?
Funnily enough, on that holiday, I was definitely not in good shape because I was just eating.
I'm rolling my eyes big time here.
Yeah, but if I showed you another photograph that was taken that same day, and I'm sitting down and you can see, because I looked at it last night, you can see the rolls of fat on my tummy, because my tummy has never been my strong point. I've always had a flabby tummy.
Kids.
I know, and I like a croissant and I like cheese, But I looked at the photograph last night and I was like, oh my God, you're sitting on a beach and people are seeing your stomach like that. That is not good. But I know the rest of me is fine. I know that. But... And I do also work at making sure I look okay, because it matters to me, because I feel better in my clothes if I feel fit. If my arms are defined, I'm more likely to wear a skimpy dress. So I definitely care how I look, and I will work at how I look. And
one of the things that I get really enraged by, because it's all I think about at the minute, is like the phrase anti-aging. How do you feel about that?
What, in terms of creams and...
Yeah, I spend a bloody fortune on them. I'm not going to stop doing that. Just don't call them that.
I know, because it's ludicrous, because everybody ages. I think the older you get, the more people die around you. And recently, or not recently, in the last couple of years, we've had friends who've died who are the same age as us or who are ill. And, for everyone that goes, you just think, I am so grateful to be alive. I am so grateful still to have a body that's functioning and not to be ill. So what does it matter if I've got wrinkles and lines and paunches and stuff like that? It genuinely has a really profound effect on you when you lose somebody who's the same age as yourself. You just stop caring and you stop being vain.
Yeah.
I will fight to be fit and strong and to like what I look like, but when it comes to apologising for being the age that I am, I'm not going to do that, because I'm just really grateful.
Yeah, right.
That's what it is. Yeah. Again, talking about lack of confidence, and when you go through, I think, the menopause, or as you get older, whether it's the menopause or whether it's just getting older, I know that I was really stricken by panic attacks quite often. So I started doing DJ gigs out, and I'm really happy sitting behind a microphone in a darkened studio and actually being on stage with hundreds of people in front of you having to perform.
You've been doing national tours, haven't you?
I have. Yeah, I've got more coming up this year. But that has probably been, apart from drive time, been my biggest challenge ever. And oh my God, it's terrifying. It's really, really horrible. Like literally standing on stage having a full-blown, just beam me out of here, Scotty panic attack. That's been really unpleasant. And there's no answer of how to get through it or what to do. You just put one foot in front of the other and you put one record on after another and it's over. But that's been quite a challenge over the last year.
Do you have to do any chat, or do you literally just play the tracks?
No, it's the chat. That's what I find challenging, because
the
you just
Hello Winchester chat.
You just feel ludicrous. I did a gig for, I think it was Pizza Express. This was a couple of years ago now, Pizza Express. And I was playing records and I got on the microphone and I just sort of went, "Hi everybody, just want to say Pizza Hut is the best place." And they all started booing me and I was thinking, why are they booing me? And of course I said they're complete rival.
Oh my God.
And I
they
hadn't
would
realised.
think they're like next level compared to Pizza Hut as well.
Yeah. So it is the equivalent of a rock band. But yeah, of course, being at Glastonbury and saying hello Reading.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you don't want to be doing that.
No, but I can see now I understand. You do literally stand aside of stage and just go, okay, it's Sunday, where am I right now? So that's been a big learning curve.
What made you do that? Was it just the challenge of doing something new and different? Or?
Yeah, and I think because there's lots of people our age who are still really into music, and whereas initially I was very, very nervous about it, I make a point of staying afterwards and saying hello to people, doing photographs and all those ludicrous things. But I love it because there's a lot of women, 70% women at the front who just want to talk, and they'll say, "Oh, I've started running because I listened to that, I do that Couch to 5K thing, or I've done a triathlon, or I'm really into my music." They've all got that they relate to me for, because we're doing the same kind of thing, and it's just so lovely to meet those people and to have a little bonding moment with them. And they come to the gigs because it's reliving their youth, and they still want to go out, they still want to have a good time, but they can't because life gets in the way and they've got kids or whatever jobs to do. So I've actually I now get quite a lot out of it, actually, which I hadn't expected at all.
No, it's so interesting, isn't it? Because the women that I've been, like, I set up this email group while I was writing the book, and I just email out questions, and they, different ones respond to different things, and that's just, I'm like, reply if you want, don't if you don't. But the chat, I love the chat. We don't know each other face to face, but we know bits and different things about each other's lives, and it's really. Yeah, I mean, you said bonding. It is bonding, but it's also just, it just makes you feel better about your own life as well, about your own decisions. Yeah, no,
it's really life enhancing. Female friendships over the last few years, I mean, they've always been really important to me, and I've got a lot of friends that I used to go to uni with, but recently, just local people that I've got friendly with, like local vets, headmistress, whatever, and it's just nice to have those conversations when we have parties like 3 o'clock in the morning, just to be able to share and offload. And it, talking about swimming saving your sanity, actually those friendships and those conversations save your sanity as well, because you need to have someone to offload to. And, not everybody wants to go and see a therapist. I'm sure therapists are great, but actually friends can be therapy as well.
Well, just knowing that someone else is in the same boat or similar is half the battle sometimes.
Yeah, no, it really, really is. Yeah, increasingly. Yeah.
I'm just going to ask you, before we wind up, I've got just a few little questions to ask that we always ask at the end. First of all, what one thing would you like to say to younger women?
It's a cliche. It's just don't worry, don't care. don't care so much, because everything that you worry about right now is not important. When you're younger, you just think things are so that they're going to affect the rest of your life, and they absolutely don't. This time will pass. Things will be different, and what you've just gone through, what you're going through right now, will have no relevance whatsoever.
I think that is one of the best things about being really, really old is that.
Yeah.
Is that I look back on some of the things I used to worry about and think, oh, God, all those hours you're never going to get back.
I know. You feel sad for yourself, don't you, that you spent so much time stressing and worrying about things and putting yourself through hell, and it was for nothing, really.
What would your superpower be?
My superpower would be I'd like to be able to swim underwater and not to have to breathe. I'd like to be like Marine Boy. There you go. So I could swim anywhere through the oceans, and I wouldn't, because I'm no good at subaqua scuba diving.
Oh, that's a really good one. I really like that one. And who are the older women who are inspiration or role models for you?
Joanna Lumley springs to mind because she's just so... I love the fact that she's still incredibly glamorous now and has got so many tales to tell, but she's...
But she also doesn't look 40 or 30. She looks her age, but fabulous.
Yeah, I was going to say she's got lines, but she wears makeup and she still smokes. Yeah. I did a thing with her and Twiggy and Lulu where I interviewed them on stage, and it was amazing. It was so good because they were such fun. They were really, really having a laugh, and they'd lived such amazing lives, and they were telling lots of stories, but they were still having fun now. And they were all excellent women. Like Lulu's going out on tour again now this year, and Twig is just really fun and feisty, and Joanna Lumley's glamorous and just brilliant. So those are three women, I think. But then I went to South by Southwest last year, went to Austin, Texas, and I interviewed an astronaut, and she blew my mind because she was so fearless and knowledgeable. There's too many women out there that are doing amazing things but not getting recognised.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? It's like if we just get more recognition at this kind of age, it's like we're not going anywhere.
Yeah, I think it's been really good, those little women books that have come out. I've really enjoyed this whole wave of celebrating women with having a small child. So having Coco, she was probably about 9 when they started to come out. So to be able to educate her about Coco Chanel, obviously, and Marie Curie and Frida Kahlo, and to all those to be celebrated, and it keeps on going. That's been brilliant, I think, making them cool.
Yeah, and last question of all is, how many fucks do you give?
I still probably give too many. I'd like to say I don't give a fuck, but actually there are still things that stress me out. But they're probably more stupid things about whether I'm happy whether a show has gone well or not. So I give a fuck about whether my show is good, but other than that, I don't give a fuck about anything else. So it's just my job. That's all I care about.
That's brilliant. Thank you for listening. I'd love to hear your feedback. You can reach me on Twitter at Sam Baker and Instagram at The Other Sam Baker using the hashtag #TheShift. You can hear a new episode of The Shift each week on Acast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you like what you hear, please do rate and subscribe, because it really does help other people find us.